What's up, guys? It's that time again. See, it's time in the season for the musical episode. That's right, we're talking season 4, episode 10, all that hard glossy armor, so stick around.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
It is Wednesday, my dudes. That's right, guys. We're talking another episode of the Magician's After Show right here on AfterBuzz TV. That's right, it's time for the seasonal musical episode, season 4, episode 10, all that hard glossy armor. My name is Ty Matthews. Joining me, as always, you've seen him talking about this show as well as Westworld, alongside many other shows. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Nate Miller.
What's up, guys?
Tag team in it tonight.
Oh, yeah.
It's a tag team match plan. Teddy Long.
Just the two of us.
Just the two of us, you know? I heard there was a song like that once. I don't know. Could be. Let's get into it. We got our musical episode like we do every season.
Yeah.
80s themed this time.
Yeah, it was, like you said, as to be expected.
Of course.
It's got to be one.
Right.
And I feel like it's usually earlier in the season, too, than
I think
this
so.
late.
Yeah, it's real late in the season. There's only a handful of episodes left. We don't usually get this kind of levity this late in the season.
Yeah.
But I guess since it's taking the form of Margot's kind of like destiny, her quest.
Kind of like her personal journey. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. But we'll be talking about that later on. We'll be talking about the musical numbers, Margot's quest. We'll have a God of the Week, even though Adrian Snow is not here. We'll have a special truncated version of the God of the Week later on in the episode, as well as predictions and theories and all that stuff. Hit us up on Twitter, hit us up on Instagram, on YouTube, thumbs up, comment, all that good stuff. Give us your theories because we got a lot to dive into. Now, that being said, we'll kind of go in sort of alternating order, going from kind of the shorter, smaller subplots to the bigger ones that we see. Because like we said before we went live, this was kind of a 2-plot episode.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of this season, it was kind of divided into neat little quarters, into fourths. But this time it was really just 2 main stories. But before we get into those, let's talk about the little bit that we saw of Zelda and Everett.
Okay.
You know, we ended last week with Zelda kind of discovering, by way of Harriet, that Everett is not who he seems.
Right.
He's kind of the big bad that we're dealing with. She kind of, really all we get is her seeing for herself, kind of, you know, doing her magic on the book, seeing the real knowledge. What do you think of where this is all going?
It was pretty interesting because I think, you know, kind of like what you said, this episode had a lot of big plot points, but they were also kind of like almost conclusions to like plots that have been going on for a while and kind of like irons that they've had in the fire and finally were seeing come to fruition.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I hadn't thought about it that way, but it's just more kind of a wrapping up of those loose ends a little bit as we move along.
Finding out, you know, about, you know, what Katie and Alice have been doing and them mapping out the network or whatever and all that stuff and that culminating in them expressing that to her and her going. I was a little frustrated and her like complete like face of like, no, there's no way that could be true after just hearing about how he's corrupt.
Right.
But at least she actually went and checked the books.
And yeah, I guess if you think about that character, it makes sense. You know, she's been so kind of, I don't want to say blindly loyal, but she's been so on the side of the library.
Zealous.
There you go. Exactly. That it makes sense that she would need to kind of see it with her own eyes. But yeah, so we kind of see her sort of meet up with Katie and Alice and the rest of the gang later on in the episode. So that's really kind of all we get on that. We see that Everett is kind of like, I don't know, kind of stringing her along, just like, oh no, you don't need to worry about that. Phyllis is handling all of this, you know, this kind of duty.
Yeah.
Just not realizing how hot on his trail she is.
Yeah. I like how they played out with I like the book. I like how they showed it and like how they had the diagrams and stuff, and I thought that was interesting.
Absolutely. We got some chat going. I will admit, we've been neglecting the chat a little bit, but we appreciate you guys nonetheless. Billie Jean Girl 24, hoping for another Queen song in this musical episode. I appreciate that. I was just reading an article before we came on that Jason Ralph said he was basically like going to be punished for trying to cover Under Pressure last season. So we didn't really get a whole lot of Quentin singing in this episode.
That's funny.
But yeah, we'll get some more of that. So we talked about Zelda and Everett and Zelda kind of meeting up with the gang. So let's talk about where Katie and Penny and Julia and Quentin are going in this episode. They have to find Enyalias, also known as Angus, because if the monster Elliot finds him and completes the building of his sister, as we find out, she's kind of the worst of the two.
Right.
You know, when we saw Penny seeing the monster's visions or seeing his memories, we see that, you know, while the monster was imprisoned, she was put to death. So whatever she's doing has got to be way worse.
Yeah, worse than what he did. Yeah.
Exactly. So now they're trying to track down Enyalias and or Angus. They have to find a leprechaun to do it.
How did you feel about the episode before having the cliffhanger of like, it's not a body he's building, and then as soon as it comes out, it's like, okay, well, it is a body, but it's not his body. It's like, oh, come on. Why are you gonna make us speculate? Like, all right, now what is it? Just to be like, no, just kidding. That's what it is.
This season has been leaning heavily on the cliffhangers, more so than I think any other season.
I was like, really?
It's a little bit.
You have me really hyped, and I mean, like, I get it. It makes sense. I like it, but
see, at least they picked up right where they left off.
Right. They make us wait, like,
as opposed to Penny
we
in the
still
underworld.
don't know who Penny saw in
Still don't know. Guys, hit us up with your predictions. Hit us up in the live chat. But yeah. So they have to find this leprechaun. Leprechauns are kind of meant to both entertain and protect Angus, as it were.
Yeah. I think something, you know, they didn't really explain too much, but they said that he's a Celtic god and that he was basically pretending to be the god Enyalias as kind of like a cover.
I see.
So that's interesting.
Right. So what did you think about them? Like, did we get, forgive me if I missed something, did we get exactly how they tracked this leprechaun down?
I think they narrowed it down to having to find a leprechaun, and then I don't remember how they found the leprechaun exactly.
Right. There was a lot happening in this. I enjoyed the leprechaun a lot. I am blanking on her name. Please remind us.
Rest in peace.
Yeah. Oh man. That was the masochist in me kind of wishes we had seen that happen, but I don't know. So we find this leprechaun in this kind of this, like, I don't know, cobbler. Are they still called cobblers? Yeah. And she kind of drops her act pretty quick.
Right.
Were you expecting more of kind of a struggle before she revealed who she really was?
I wasn't expecting.
Was it Charlie? Thank you, Zazie. I think it was Charlie.
I wasn't expecting so much of a struggle as much as just like,
not necessarily a struggle, I guess, but just with her Barney. Was that what it was? I
just wasn't like, she's like, okay, she's a leprechaun. Okay, cool.
Right.
What is she gonna do that's like leprechaun-y now?
Right.
And then like it never kind of happens. So
well, she puts him. Okay. She puts him into an escape room. Yeah. I guess if there's an updated version of leprechauns, they're gonna put you in a deadly escape room.
I just would have liked more rainbows and lots of gold somewhere in there, or like Lucky Charms or something.
You knew that with Santa Claus being portrayed as very much not Santa Claus, that we weren't going to get rainbows and pots of gold.
But he flew away in reindeer and sleigh.
We at least got that much. But I guess to that kind of corollary, it was the fact that Barney the leprechaun, thank you guys in the chat, was at least Irish.
Yes.
She was at least had a nice Irish brogue.
And that was her whole thing of that, like, what were you expecting? Like, so I'm wrong.
Yeah,
right?
exactly
what she was talking about.
So she, in order to gain access to Angus, she puts them in an escape room, not unlike the film Escape Room that came out fairly recently.
Haven't seen it.
Did you check that one? Oh, I forgot. You're not big on the.
Nope, I can't do scary movies.
The scary movies.
Scary cat.
That's fair. So yeah, so they're doing all sorts of stuff, and I myself, I don't know how you feel about actual escape rooms. I'm kind of obsessed with them.
I've done one. It was cool.
Yeah.
I can see why people would be into it.
Absolutely. I think at this point I've done between 30 and 40, something like that.
And I mean, I'm assuming the implication is that they did a couple other challenges, but we only see them like do the machine to find the knob, and then,
Yeah, exactly.
And he just finds the key like on top of the door.
Right,
so.
right. And luckily they have they have Julia, the goddess, to kind of reach up and that trap, that claw machine. Once again, another horror movie reference for y'all watching. Very similar to kind of Saw 2. There's kind of a similar trap. Someone has to reach their hands up into a box. All these blades. It's good stuff, guys. Saw 2.
I'm covering my ears.
14-year-old movie. But yeah, she reaches up, grabs the knob. They find their way in. They meet Angus, who just like, I love that his idea of tricking them and kind of doing his trickster antics is literally just hiding from them and making them think he's not there. Like, it's such a dumb
It was funny.
trick.
I just like this whole thing still just kind of struck me as weird. Like, he's gone through all this like trouble to like hide himself. Mm-hmm. And now, like, they've, like, found him, and he is not concerned about the monster, really.
Yeah,
apparently.
He does not seem to be worried, which I will say I liked his sort of monologue that he gave on kind of the why humans shouldn't fear death, basically, or why they waste so much time fearing
about
death.
the end.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that they don't really get to enjoy life.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that he had kind of a distinct point of view on that, but yeah, you're right. It didn't seem like he was worried at all.
And like he said that like he enjoyed their panic and their anxiety and stuff in some weird way, which I get too. But you're in danger though, like,
right?
You're the target.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're all
yeah. And he's killed all these other gods already, and you're the last one on the list. You've been hiding, and you're just like, oh, let me just casually open up the door to my. Now that you guys are here, let me figure out the combination.
And he just forgot.
But I guess when you're a god, you just don't. You're immortal, so maybe it's not real. To
yeah,
you.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I think the idea of being killed by another being or like a god killer kind of doesn't really occur to you all that much. But yeah, so. The Elliot monster shows up on the scene. Is it Barry? We're getting some conflicting reports in the chat. We've gotten Charlie, Barney, Barry. Might have been Barry. I don't know. I can't quite remember. We watched these kind of in a blur. Whoever the leprechaun was, name notwithstanding, Elliot monster shows up with her head in his hands.
She didn't make it.
No, poor girl. Gone too soon. But yeah, and so Penny luckily has kind of the foresight to spirit everyone away before the monster can get to them.
I just like to imagine like him showing up and she's like, yeah, right this way. You have to go through the escape room. Right. And he's like, ugh, and just like cuts her head off.
Exactly. Now, with that in mind, we'll talk about this a little bit more, but Billie Jean Girl 24 in the chat brings up a good question about the Elliot monster and the girl that he meets at the bar, the one that is sick. I'm assuming chronically sick. They're in this bar that's next to a hospital. He says it smells like death. Renji, that song, I'm sorry, we're going on a lot of tangents. That song at the end is Storm Coming by Gnarls Barkley, I believe. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. So he's saying that this bar smells like death because they're right next to a hospital. But every time that she touches his face, he remembers something about his sister. Now, Billie Jean, she asked a good question, or they asked a good question about what we think that his intentions are with this person. Do we think that he's going to kind of channel the spirit of his sister into her body? Use her as a vessel, maybe?
That's a good theory. I'm gonna go with that because I have no idea at this point. I'm pretty thrown in terms of like predictions of what's going on.
Because we didn't, pretty much
we're getting a very, very small drip of like information.
Exactly, yeah. We didn't really see what happened in the in between him kind of whisking her away and him showing up at Angus's residence.
Yeah.
So We'll see. We've got a whole other kind of side plot, a lot of musical numbers to get into. Not us, we're just talking. We're not singing this time. But before we get to the rest of the episode, got a special message for y'all.
Yeah, we just wanted to say thank you for making us the ESPN of TV Talk. And guys, for us to continue to grow, we could really use your help. If you're on YouTube right now, please hit that thumbs up button and subscribe. If you're on iTunes, go ahead and give us a 5-star rating. And no matter where you are, please leave us a comment so you can get involved in the conversation as well. Being a part of AfterBuzz TV has meant so much to us. And we really, truly appreciate you guys listening and supporting so that we can do what we love. And don't forget to tell your friends and keep enjoying our shows. There's plenty of other after shows out there for all the TV shows that you check out. Just go ahead and look them up on YouTube or iTunes, whatever you're listening on, and enjoy that content.
Absolutely. I mean, like we say every week, we have a blast talking about this, theorizing, bloviating, whatever you want. But we appreciate you guys more than anything. I know that Renji in the chat has been here since, I believe, season 1, been here since day 1. So we truly appreciate that kind of support. It's a wild journey that we've been on for these 4 seasons, but we appreciate all of y'all.
We're here together.
Exactly. That being said, let's talk about Margo, who has been freshly exiled from Fillory and is kind of off on her journey. She's got an iPod full of 80s tunes, and she's out to find the foremost so she can make some Isa X's.
Yeah, this was cool. Yeah, I'm not really a big musical person. I do love music. I'm a big music guy, just not really big in musicals.
I see.
But I like that they were able to make it part of the plot and like make it kind of make sense as these kind of voices in her head that are singing to her.
Yeah.
And they're also the songs that are on the iPods. It's like a nice kind of correlation.
Yeah.
And I think also at the same time they were still able to balance a good amount of storytelling, and like, you know, that whole plot line with them in the desert with that was pretty interesting. It's a nice little mini story, very symbolic. Obviously, I feel really bad that Adrian's not here today because like all that stuff about women, and we have 2 guys here to talk about it.
We're gonna say that right out the gate. We're gonna try our best to kind of analyze this, but just know that Adrian is missed, and we will talk about this more next week once she's here.
She's here, right?
Because there's a lot of great symbolism that we'll get to, but yeah. So to your point, I like that the Magicians always kind of justifies why the music is happening. I know that the thing about musicals that turns a lot of people off is that people are just breaking in the song at the drop of a hat, and some people are not crazy about that. So it's appreciated that the Magicians at least goes to lengths to justify why it's happening. Ever since Quentin singing Taylor Swift in season 1, there's always been sort of a reason. They've kind of done that Scrubs thing. Did we talk about that? Did we talk about that Scrubs musical episode? Yeah, where there's at least a reason for it. People aren't just singing just to sing. But because Margo has her iPod filled with 80s tunes, thanks to Josh, that's kind of the theme of the musical numbers. So first we get Elliot, the kind of reptilian hallucination of Elliot breaking into the Pretenders, don't get me wrong, right off the bat. And I think I like that Margo's reaction kind of mirrored what I imagine like the audiences would be if they hadn't seen one of these episodes before.
Yeah, that and it was nice. It's just nice to see Elliot again and like see him kind of like be himself and not be the monster.
Right. As much fun as it's been to see Hale Apperman kind of throw himself into this monster persona, it's easy to miss Elliot. I think that Elliot is,
from a story perspective, I miss him.
Exactly. Sure. I would probably say that Elliot's my favorite character on the show. So it's good to see him back and showing off those degree, exactly, yeah, and showing off those pipes.
Yeah, good performance. This is my main complaint with this musical episode is I'm just not crazy about the song choices. Sure. I'm not sure if they just couldn't get their first choices of songs or if this is just what somebody was really dead set on.
It could be it. I'm personally not crazy about 80s tunes just in general. White Snake. The White Snake number that we get later on is not one of my favorites.
I think that's Here I Go Again on My Own, right? I
Yeah,
think
that's the one.
I think that's the best one.
Do you?
Because I think it's a good song, but I also think it fits well within like the moment that they're trying to tell.
It did fit very well.
The other ones, I feel like it was either one or the other, where like it's a good song, but I don't know if it fits here, or like, oh, this fits here, but there isn't like a better song that fits here that you could have chose. But that's just me. I do want to say I think the performances were great.
Yes.
Better than the last time. Not that they were bad last time, but I think giving a smaller group amount of people to sing and a small, like, you know, it was a little bit more intimate, I think, than the last episode where they had big dance numbers and everybody's included and stuff.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I think Bunny Babu in the chat notes that there were barely any dances in this musical episode compared to that one.
Yeah.
That one was very kind of like, I don't know if you'd call it Fosse-esque.
Well, I think, and again, given the context of it being that magical realm, they were able to go kind of over the top and have it fit.
Sure.
It wouldn't really make sense with the way that they were playing it out of it being like in her head of, you know, getting to the sand place and the axe guy starts doing like a dance or something. Like that would have been like, oh, okay. That would have taken away from the levity of that story.
That would have been pretty wild. Yeah, exactly. Zanzi, no shade to White Snake. I lump that in with like butt rock, like the kind of 80s butt rock that, like, I don't know, man, power ballads, all that stuff. So Margot, she kind of goes wandering in the desert. They accept her in pretty quick, that, you know, because she has those brandings, because she's been exiled from Fillory, that she must be okay. I saw some people in the chat not crazy about that kind of the convenience of that.
I mean, it's not the most convenient thing that they've done.
I was gonna say
she does have an actual branding on her arm.
Right, we've talked enough about convenience this season that this isn't the most egregious sin.
Plus,
as far as this goes,
within the context of like there's that group story too, they don't really value women that much. So it might be easy for them to go, oh, it's just another dumb woman who has been exiled from our enemies, so we know that she's not like with them. So come on, just be our slave or whatever.
Right, exactly. So as she's making her way to this camp, she's followed by this kind of red sand. The foremost explains to her, or I guess the woman, the kind
foremost assistant.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. She kind of explains that that the sand goes after the women in their village, so that
what she says, and then the sand immediately attacks a man.
I thought that exact same thing.
What?
Right. But I guess it was presented as if he was kind of like taking
jumping
the
in
bullet.
The way, yeah, or something like that.
Right. But eventually, as the episode goes on, we see the White Snake. Here I go again on my own montage. Margot kind of, you know, uses her wiles, uses her charms to sort of charm the foremost and find out exactly what is all about these ice axes and how you kind of make one.
How do you feel about her sleeping with a guy to like? I mean, this is one of those tough situations where like it's not my place to tell a woman what to do with her body, but I feel like with all the Josh stuff, like if the tables were turned and we got like a side plot of Josh and he like slept with some girl,
right? But I guess I mean the only thing that I can think of is that it's kind of means to an end, in that she thinks that this is kind of the only way that she can get Elliot back.
Right.
So
yeah, she's gonna do whatever it takes.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see if she tells Josh when she sees him.
That's a good point.
So I don't know. I think they might. I think it'll come out. I think the Margot of old would probably have not told him.
Yeah. Well, I think, and that's why like I'm not too surprised for a character. It's a Margot thing to do. You know, do what you got to do. It's not like he took advantage of her. She was in control. But the whole Josh thing that they have been putting in this season kind of throws a whole wrench into that of like, okay, well then how does that play into this? Especially with how they left and stuff too.
Sure. So. And I think the fact it was a little bit weird. I mean, I know it wasn't really Josh, but the Josh hallucination, literally just watching it happen was a little bit weird.
I mean, and that also speaks to like the fact that she does feel a little bit guilty because that's her subconscious.
Yeah, like, exactly.
Actually showing up.
But, you know, he's not... that hallucination, for whatever it's worth, isn't busting her chops, isn't giving her shit for it. So it makes me wonder if she, you know, in her head, if that kind of is sort of signifies the justification, you know.
Yeah.
But ultimately she finds out where, you know, how to make her own ice axes, which is to go out into the desert, pick out every 100th grain of sand, which is black, fill a large bag with it. Then and only then can she forge it into an ice axe. She can't use magic. She can't get emotional. Like,
Sounds like your average fake magic journey you
Right.
send somebody on who you don't expect them to succeed.
yeah, exactly.
It was good though. It was a good, you know, it's a good. If there's something that's going to make you, you know, emotional, it's going to be getting frustrated trying to fill a bag like that out there.
Right.
It makes sense why they did that. I don't know. It was interesting. It was a nice backdrop for that emotional little arc that she had with herself, like that moment of like breaking down and stuff. It was a good place to frame that in.
Yeah.
I kind of did want to see some forging happen though. I thought
Yeah,
that
me
would've been
too.
cool, but
I wanted to
get it.
see. I was definitely very interested in just like the actual logistics of like, okay, hardening the sand and like seeing for anyone that watches like Forged in Fire, like that kind of thing, you know.
little mini montage.
Exactly. Really interesting talk going on in the chat about Margot and this kind of whole subplot. Bunny Babu has a good point. The fact that Margot gets her power and her confidence from her sexuality. As we said, she'll do absolutely anything for Elliot, which is fair that Josh would know and kind of understand that. But she's definitely, that character is definitely empowered and owns her sexuality. From day one, we've kind of gotten that about Margot. So it was great to see that kind of what am I trying to say? To see that manifested. There's the word.
Yeah.
That's the one I'm looking for in this episode.
Yeah, and she used it to let, you know, not only get what she needs to save Elliot, but to liberate a whole group of people. too.
Exactly. And I certainly don't think that Josh would necessarily be too mad about it, you know, if he knows that the reason that she's doing it and if it's the only way to get Elliot back. You know, he might be a little bit jealous for a second, but
Yeah,
but
probably come around.
yeah, I think this Margot is much more open to the idea of transparency and open lines of communication. So I'm curious to see when they kind of reunite how that looks. Let's talk about Margot encountering this sand creature, I guess, out in the desert and kind of. Let's kind of rewind back the conversation that she has with Elliot, this sort of breaking down of what she's all about. I'm wondering, did you think that this might have been too on the nose or too kind of ham-fisted?
I mean, yes and no. I think it, you know, given her emotional state and everything that she's been through, I think it kind of makes sense for her to finally have this breakdown and
Sure.
have this moment and stuff. But the timeline, like, it did feel a little bit rushed. I feel like this whole plot, like, could have been its whole episode on its own.
Right,
and they
exactly.
kind of just cut it down to just what they needed to move it along, which is understandable.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. The fact that they had to kind of share this with the whole Angus and Elias subplot,
Right.
I think, kind of robbed it a little bit of its efficiency, maybe.
Well, even just that it's contained to this episode. Like, I feel like we could have got
multiple episodes.
if they had split this timeline, that plot line up, you know, and we saw like a little bit throughout like 3 episodes. Like if she got banished way earlier in the
Sure.
season, I think maybe it would have had a little bit more of like when she comes around and like saves all these people, like it has a little bit more meaning and she's like really rised up from the ashes. 'Cause,
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
She literally in the episode gets banished, walks there and then meets these people and saves them. In the end, he's like, all right, cool, I've got my blades now. Like,
Yeah, in-
which is
in
cool,
and out,
but
yeah.
it's like boom, 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 done.
Right.
Like, there's no time for her to be like low and be like, all right, cool, I just got banished.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to do this other thing. I have to make the sacrifice. So
Right.
in that regard, I think it was a little rushed, but I think it was a great performance. And I've been waiting for Margot to have that moment because
Yes.
she's still been so like this the whole time.
Absolutely. She's been through so much and she's kind of put up this steely demeanor the whole time that seeing her and this hallucination, this representation of Elliot break down exactly what it is about her and the episode's namesake, all that hard glossy armor that she hides behind and kind of protects herself with. It is fascinating for sure. But yeah, that leads to this. I guess that's her lowest point, is the fact that she knows that this spirit might possibly come and kill her or possess her or whatever, and she's still, kind of breaks down and lets it all out.
What's that pressure of like she said, a few episodes ago, that she doesn't have time to feel and like be emotional and stuff and like let it go. And this is like a very literal situation where she cannot get emotional, but she knows, inside that as much as she could put the face on, like you can only hold it together for so long. You don't have to. So to be in this situation where when she finally lets it go, have an actual consequence, was interesting. Put some stakes on the line. Yeah,
for sure. So we at that point, that's where we see kind of the true nature and the true purpose of this sand. Was there a proper name for it? Once again, I'm not doing great with names.
Red demon sand.
Yeah, I'm just calling it the sand. We kind of get an inkling of it from this encounter, and then later on when Margot shows up again with the bag, or with the axes rather, she kind of explains what it was she learned, and that it's that they're there to protect the women of this village.
Right. They've been lying the whole time.
Right, exactly. Similar to kind of that first key quest that we saw last season, where the guy was kind of lying to everyone about the giant monster.
Right.
We get a little bit more of that.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, right. But it's they're there to help and they're there to protect, and they'll possess the men that are causing them stress, and they'll leave if they want, or they'll kill them if they want. Yeah. Either way.
I mean, and this is where one of those like double-sided coins is where I like the writers, coming back to Margot and her eye, and that is how she's able to see them.
Yeah.
But I don't like that the only way that they explain that, because it was so quick, was that later Margot's like, oh yeah, by the way, I have a fairy eye.
Oh yeah, it's my eye.
Like she literally just has to say it.
Has to actually say it's a long
like
story.
Exposition, right?
Right. So, which is fair. I mean,
but that's what I mean of like, if you split this up and you give it time, then you can have a visual storytelling scene where that happens,
right?
Instead of her just being like, oh yeah, this is what happened.
Exactly. Give us a director's cut, guys, on the when the DVD comes out. Give us the full length.
I just want 24 episode seasons.
Exactly.
I don't really want that.
But yeah, so we get this kind of this badass, action montage of Margot, taking out everyone, because once they know that she knows the truth, they know that she's going to tell people, so they can't have that. So we get kind of this fight scene where she busts open all the jars of red sand and kind of sicks them on the men of the village that are out to kill her. Set to, once again, as I was telling the chat earlier, I read that song was originally by Gnarls Barkley. I didn't know that song before. I enjoyed that one out of all the songs in the episode. But yeah, so now she's got her ice axes. She's coming to save Elliot. She's got hallucinations of everyone, including Dean Vogg, which I was excited to see. And Katie, I like that they're just sort of lampshading the fact that Katie has this ridiculous range compared to everyone else.
Yeah, she's an incredible singer.
Yeah,
completely separate.
But I love that kind of that winking, that sort of
way of
fourth wall breaking,
getting her to come in and still do some runs on the music episode. Well, like you can't have a singer like that in your cast and then have her not singing in the music episode. So exactly.
So that's kind of where we're at right now. Margot's got her ice axes. She's coming to save Elliot. The Elliot monster has killed all of the gods that he needs to, and is basically, who knows if he's already built his sister or not, or if we're going to see that in the next episode. Before we get into predictions, though, let's get into the God of the Week.
Disappointed!
Thank you, Kevin Sorbo. One of my absolute favorite drops. This week we're talking about Angus. We saw the Celtic god Angus kind of masquerading as Enolius, doing what he does, being a trickster god. He is typically kind of personified as, if you're watching the YouTube stream right now, you can see this. He's typically personified as kind of his head is kind of permanently circled by singing birds. We didn't get that in this episode. That might have been a little bit too much, but that's kind of where how we usually see him presented. He's kind of presented as living at Newgrange by the River Boyne. He possesses a sword. This is one of my favorite things. He possesses a sword called Moraltac, or the Great Fury. I
like that.
There's a whole lot about the Great Fury, the sword, and kind of passing it on to his son, all that stuff. Look that up. There's a whole lot of awesome folklore around it. In some stories, he also had the ability to repair broken bodies and return them to life, which it could have come in handy with his leprechaun friend, but no time to do that when you're getting killed by a god-killing monster. He also pops up in a poem by William Butler Yeats. For all y'all, poetry fans out there, shout out to Lem Gonzalez. I'm sure he probably knows all about it. But that's a little bit about Angus. Now that's Aengus. Not like Black Angus, the steakhouse, not like Angus the movie. And he was portrayed by this handsome gentleman. Gethin Anthony was the man who portrayed the very short-lived Angus. Episode 410 to episode 410.
Also portrays the short-lived Renly Baratheon.
There you go. I know we had some Game of Thrones fans in the chat talking about that as well. So there you go. Final season coming out very soon. So there's so much to talk about, so much to kind of try and theorize on. So with that said, let's use these last few minutes to get into some predictions.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
There we go. So, what are we going to try to predict here? I guess let's start with what we think is going to happen with Darth Elliot, Nigel, whatever you want to call him, his sister. Now that she's basically as good as built, where do we think that's going?
I honestly have no idea. I'm excited for everybody to kind of like converge and be like together. We only have 2 more episodes left, right?
I think so.
Whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen next episode, and then we'll get like the fallout and stuff in the episode after that.
Right,
so
right.
I'm expecting the sister to come back, and then I'm expecting to actually find out about the monster. I don't really know. I don't have too many like predictions as much as I just have a lot of expectations.
Yeah, we haven't had. There's not a lot of. Not a lot to go off of, I feel like, as much as there usually is around this time of the season.
They're still keeping everything close to the vest for like a big reveal, it seems like, where they're going to like be like, aha, this is how everything fits together.
Right,
it's like,
right.
Oh, that and that and that and that. And that.
Yeah, exactly.
We're not getting a lot of clues.
Right.
I think it's episode 8, and we still don't really know. Or, I'm sorry.
Episode 10.
And we still don't even know what the monster really is. Like, we found out we were doing so much work in like the first few episodes, and then we just kind of like stalled, and now we're just kind of like cruising.
Yeah, exactly. We've seen kind of all of a
lot of setup,
the bodies that he's inhabited, but yeah, 3 episodes left. Thank you very much, chat. A lot left to go. Like I said, I think that the woman that he met at the bar, I think he's kind of he might posit that he's going to cure her by using her as a vessel, but I'm not quite sure. As far as Margo and exercising Elliot, I mean, obviously it's gonna be a big showdown, a pretty epic fight before she's able to
just let him like walk up.
Exactly. But I'm excited to see the moment. I feel it's got to happen where Margo just sinks those ice axes into the monster, and we get that kind of that moment, But who knows? And then also there's everything with Zelda and Everett and the library and Phyllis. I have a feeling that Phyllis, I don't know. She's kind of a linchpin. I don't know if she's gonna side with Everett or side with Zelda. Who knows? I mean, as I've said before, I'm a huge Jewel Stipe fan, dating all the way back to Space Cases, Firefly, all that good stuff. I never watched Flash Forward. I heard it was very good. But
I don't hold too much confidence in any of the librarians, so
no?
I don't know. We'll see.
Right? Maybe Zelda's the only good one.
Yeah. Maybe there'd be like a, hey, we're not about this.
Right.
But
Yeah, exactly. Maybe
I wouldn't bet on it.
right, exactly. I've got kind of this scenario in my head where somehow Everett gets locked in the poison room and gets that magic cancer that Penny did as sort of divine karma. Who knows? I don't know. I'm just kind of
Pretty elaborate.
yeah, exactly. Sometimes you got to creative writing major, guys. You just got to come up with those elaborate predictions. But that's it for this week. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Like I said, we have so much fun talking about this every single week. So hit us up on social media. Give us those predictions. But speaking of social media, Nate Miller, where can they find you?
Guys, you can find me everywhere at Dog Like Nate.
Absolutely. As always, you can find me on all forms of social media at Ty Matthews PMA. I will not be here next week because this weekend I'm getting on a train to go to New York to go to WrestleMania.
It's a long train ride.
It's 3.5 days. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, find me online at Ty Matthews PMA. Catch me on Championship Wrestling from Hollywood Saturday nights 1 a.m. Check your local listings. Fight TV. We'll be right back here, same time, same channel, talking season 4, episode 11. We are almost done of The Magicians, but until then, peace.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.